Serious, Reddit, what was the scariest place you have ever been to? I had just crossed over the border into China from Kazakhstan. For some reason, my buddy and I made it a plan to hit as many haunted houses as we could. For whatever reason, there were plenty on our route from Moscow to Delhi. We found out about one in Urumqi and decided to go. As we went down these dank stairs into what seemed like once was part of an underground system, everything just felt wrong. The person there had us sit in these gross chairs in front of this odd raised platform. Out of nowhere, this girl, and I mean no more than 14, comes out in a skimpy leopard print outfit with a snake. We are getting GTFO vibes but are the only ones there, and the dudes running the place are right behind us. So, we proceed to watch this girl pop the snake's head into her mouth and swing it around like a helicopter. After the show they tried to guide us to these rooms with the grossest mattresses on the planet on the ground. It was really sad, creepy, and disgusting. All we could do is shove some RMB in the guy's hand and run out. Last year I lived in a suburb in Gifu Prefecture. Down the street was a broken down old house and my friend and I decided to do a photo shoot there one night, because an old broken Japanese house looked pretty cool. When I say broken down, I mean entire walls were missing and exposing the inside, floors were broken, and lots of old junk everywhere. Pipes and beams were exposed, and there were crates of old belongings. There was one crate though that had hundreds of photos of the same girl, as a child to adulthood. Black and white, developed from film. It was always just her and no one else in the photo. I thought it was strange that the old owners could just leave photos of this girl behind. The more I looked at them, I noticed she didn't seem happy in a lot of them. I got really uncomfortable and so my friend and I left and abandoned the photo shoot. I think she might have been a victim of something and that's why the photos were left behind in a half-destroyed house. Got really freaked out that night. Edit, to all the other expats in the Gifu area, the house got torn down and became an empty lot a few months later. Where I lived in Asia, Taiwan, people can be very superstitious about leaving things that might be contaminated with bad luck, so maybe they just abandoned the pictures without a crazy backstory. Or she died in the fire, which would be sad. Kinda cool but off-putting to be in a half-burned down house with everything left in it. One Village's story https://www.worldabandoned.com/sansipodcity. I don't know why the fuck this happened, but by the end of it you'll understand when I say my parents aren't known for making the best decisions. So, when I was 9 or 10, my dad took me to this house that had been basically destroyed by fire. I don't remember exactly whether my mother was there or she just ooked this. They were not together, ever. There were other adults involved in this too, I think my uncle and one of my dad's buddies. But I was the only kid. Anyway, we went into this fire-destroyed house to look for shit that could be salvaged. We found very little and really that should have been nothing at all. All I really recall anymore was an 8-track tape that had been warped just enough by the fire to play 2 songs at once in spots. So there's lil' kid me, after dark, picking my way through this fucking burned house full of debris, and I get into one room and look in what had been the closet and there's this shagrug looking thing there. Which was when my dad helpfully told me that the daughter of the house had run back inside the fire to try to save the family dog, and died in the closet with her arms wrapped around the animal, and that wasn't a rug but the remains of the dog's body. And then I was encouraged to look through this dead kid's toys to see if anything was in good enough condition for me to take home. I've been afraid of dying in a fire ever since. An Airbnb in Barcelona. I've spent quite a while in Spain, speak Spanish, and have visited Barcelona multiple times. I've also used Airbnb multiple times, and know what to check for. 2 friends and I, all 20 SF, picked an Airbnb with several favorable ratings, in a good neighborhood. One of the ones that's a room in someone's apartment. Show up, and the 2 guys look nothing like the picture, but are very hospitable, so we went inside. They showed us around, and the apartment looked like the photos. Then they showed us the room and let us be. We opened the door to the room and it's nothing like the photos. It's essentially a closet, 3 dirty twin mattresses on the floor with no pillows and blankets covered in old food. Furthermore, the door to the room has no interior lock on it, but it did have an exterior lock. It's at this point that we also realized they never gave us a key to the apartment. We took pictures of everything and waited until we heard them leave the apartment, and watched them from the window until they were out of sight. We gathered our packs and sprinted out of there, with no plans on where to go, just calling random hostels until we found one that had room. But it was on the other side of the city, and the metro had closed for the night. So we walked an hour and a half. Thankfully the hostel was lovely, and Airbnb refunded us and removed the listing, but we're convinced it was a human trafficking setup. My experience was more about the circumstances than the place. I went to a university that offered volunteer opportunities that included cheap international trips. I was on a trip with 20 other clueless Midwestern teens traveling to a school in the mountains of Bolivia. The road was a sheer cliff face on one side and a step drop-off on the other. And of course, there were crosses along the roadside marking where vehicles had gone over the side. This was just nerve-wracking until the driver stopped the bus for what we thought was just taking a break. Then he scooted under the front wheels of the bus, came out, rooted around in a box and found a wire coat hanger. Scooted back under the bus with the coat hanger and came out without it. Then, vamonos. Our nervousness turns to concern. At the next stop a woman gets on as we are leaving and drapes her arm over the driver's shoulder and they proceed to semi-make out while he is driving. Several of us were white-knuckled at this point. When it gets dark the driver and his girl light up and we smell weed. So now we got a stoned driver getting a hand job in a bus held together by a coat hanger cruising around these hairpin turns in the dark. Good thing it was a Christian college and we all knew the words to Nearer My God to Thee. I was involuntarily committed after trying to kill myself. I ended up in really shitty mental hospital in the South because of it. Our mental hospital had 2 wards. High risk and low risk. I was put in high risk. It was one of the scariest places I've been. I was not like the other women there. First off I was the youngest by about a decade, also these people had serious mental conditions. My roommate spoke in tongue but was pretty docile. I woke up on the second night to her peeing on me, I freaked out and attacked her. Now this is considered a bad idea in a mental institution. When the guards and nurses showed up I was covered in pee attacking my docile roommate. Not a good look and they didn't believe a word I said. The guards restrained me and my roommate gave me slight grin. Any chance I had of getting out of there early was gone. I was now considered violent, a liar, and I pee myself. I spent the rest of my stay in a diaper. Most of it was spent restrained. And no one ever believed a word I said. The last part is important because I was a young, attractive lady who lies and is in bondage most of the time. I started getting abused sexually and physically by one of the nurses. Here is the most terrifying part. I was supposed to be out in about 3 weeks, transferred to the low-risk unit after a couple days. I spent 2 months in the high-risk unit wearing a diaper and getting abused by a nurse. I couldn't do anything about. Literally nothing. TBH. Our old apartment in which I lived with my mom. Stuff disappeared, and what's more concerning, it reappeared out of nowhere. One night a light turned on its own several times in a row after my mom turned it off. Some things went completely missing even though it doesn't seem possible. I heard weird noises from the attic above our apartment. Side note see below. And after a fresh handprint appeared on the glass window/door to the attic, while none of us were up there, we moved out. There was other things happening as well while we lived there but these were the main ones. Neither my mom nor I felt safe and normal in there. My room roof was made out of wood though, it is potentially possible that this WSS making noises but it doesn't quite add up completely. Edit, before it comes up again, no we did not hallucinate, we even asked others to confirm what we were seeing. We did also not do weird stuff and forgot about it, it was different than this, also we didn't even have a ladder to get to the attic on our own so there's that. It went on for 6 months both inside and outside the apartment. After moving out it mainly stopped. We found out our landlord illegally owned keys to our apartment and my mom thinks it was him, but him bringing back my lost necklace while I'm sleeping and placing it beside my head freaks me TF out, more than any other explanation. When I was in my late 20s my dad and I went on a tour to Cambodia. Part of the tour included half a day at the Chiang Ek killing fields about half an hour's drive outside of Phnom Penh. My dad must have seen that movie The Killing Fields because he opted to stay at the hotel but I wasn't as bright as he was and gladly went with our group. The entire atmosphere was really creepy. Even though it was in the middle of a jungle, I don't recall hearing any birds or insects the entire time I was there. It was like nature itself knew the place was cursed and abhorred it. One of the trees was called the Baby Killer because Khmer Rouge soldiers had smashed out the brains of infants against its trunk and the branches were festooned with trinkets from its victims. I even had to be careful where I stepped because there were human remains buried all over the place and they poked through the soil in certain places. And if all of this wasn't disturbing enough, the center of the killing fields had a stupa, a Buddhist shrine/grave thing, with a display case loaded with the skulls of the killing field victims. Many of the skulls prominently displayed the gruesome injuries which had killed the victims. And there were speakers playing a creepy-sounding Buddhist dirge. I never want to go back to that place ever again. The market at night near my grandparents' house in India. For context, I am Indian American, so I visit India pretty often. One time, my grandparents needed something from the market, so they asked my mom to go. Typically, women don't go by themselves at night because, sadly, it is really common for a woman to be raped. So my mom asked me to come with her too. That shit is scary as fuck. There were only about 3 street lamps, mind you, this was in a pretty big city in India, so that's kinda uncommon. The market itself was the whole street, and we had to go deeper into the market to get to the store we needed. There wasn't a single woman or kid, only grown men staring at us while they had a drink or cigarette. The entire time I was only thinking about what my mother and I would do in case any of them attacked. We got to the store we needed and got the thing. But the storekeeper looked at us really weird, as if he was surveying us. Even after we left the store, I could still see him looking at us. I wanted to go back to my grandparents' house as fast as possible, but my mother was wearing a sari. She doesn't wear that in America, just in India, and it is impossible to run in that shit, at least the way my mom was wearing it. It was super hard. Eventually, after we passed a group of men sitting on a motorcycle, we see them all get up and start following us. At this point, my mom also started to panic and we both practically ran, more like speed walking, but my mom was going as fast as she could. We got onto the main road, where there were far more people and a lot more light. The men stopped and went back to the motorcycle. I honestly can't tell you how scary that was. The fact that I could have been murdered and my mom possibly raped before she was murdered. There was no mistake, those men were coming after us, and ever since then, neither me or my mom or anyone from my family went to that market at night. My friend and I visited a Scientology church for an extra credit paper back in college. We knew next to nothing about it at the time, other than some bizarre stories we'd heard about people mysteriously going missing after trying to leave the church or speaking out against it, etc. All 3 of the people we directly interacted with had a sort of emptiness to their eyes and interrogated us about why we were there. They refused to believe we were writing a paper for school, like we were there for some malicious purpose or something, and kept asking more and more questions to get to the bottom of the purpose of our visit. They finally let us go to the 2nd floor. First floor was only reception and bathroom, large room with but 1 or 2 people in sight. They made us sign in with our name, address, and email address, and my friend whispered, "You didn't leave your real info, did you?" It was already so incredibly creepy and intense, and nothing had even happened. They sat us down by ourselves to watch a video which was super vague and boring, and all we wanted was enough info to write a 1-page paper, which we weren't getting from the video, so we got up to explore. Immediately, an older woman was in our faces, empty eyes and all, asking why we didn't finish the video. We needed to finish the video, sit down and finish the video. We felt like 5-year-olds being punished for not sitting still. After another attempt at finishing the video, we were getting antsy and creeped out, so again decided to take a quick look around then peace out. The area we were in was set up like a museum with gallery walls covered in blown-up versions of news articles documenting the public's attempt to understand Scientology. We expected to come across something that would indicate what Scientologists do or believe in or something, but never did. We only did a quick loop through the room, but every time we looked over our shoulders, one of the sign-in/interrogator guys and the woman demanding we watch the video were lurking behind us, glaring at us suspiciously, whispering to one another. We held hands, completely terrified, our imaginations racing at what could possibly lie in our future. When we felt the opportunity, we jetted to the elevator, pushed the buttons frantically, and literally sprinted across the parking lot to our car. The intensity of being in that place, especially on the 2nd floor, is incredibly difficult to put into words, but has stayed with both of us. We still talk about how lucky we feel to have gotten out of there without them taking our souls, that we know of, anyway, ha. I went to a special needs school until I was 11 and me and a group of mates all with various disabilities were sent away on a separate scheme from the school. The scheme was organized and run by young Christian/Catholic medical students. Obviously, there's nothing wrong with Christian and Catholic people in general, but these people were wrong on more levels than you can imagine. There were at least 5 other special needs schools there on the scheme. All the other children also had various disabilities and needs. They used the week to use us kids in experimental treatments and examinations, in between taking us on field trips and enforced religious services and activities. Regardless of our religion, they force-fed my best mate meat, even though it said on her permission form that being Pakistani she was a strict vegetarian, dislocated my other mate's hip by throwing him playfully in the air, and didn't brush my hair for the entire week. At night you couldn't sleep for the drunken whopping and loud grunts of pleasure from said medical students. You were also quite fearful of certain male members coming to check on you in the middle of the night too, and we came up with a keep-safe solution when it happened. This all resulted in us having enough and planning a prison break where me and an able-bodied mate done a runner from the mansion. We didn't get far though, not surprising as we were both only 10 years old and my mate who was pushing my wheelchair was autistic. We got as far as the gates at the bottom of the hill before we were rounded up and carted back in the van. We were both reprimanded severely and banned from going out for one day, but the rest of our mates thought we were here so that was good. When we got home, we all told our parents about the awful week and the school were informed. The school already knew about our friend with a dislocated hip, as he had to stay in hospital overnight when it happened, so they weren't too happy with the scheme anyway. The school never used the scheme again after that year. Charlotte, North Carolina, 2009/10-ish. South Tryon Street. My best friend and I, two 20-something-year-old females, have just left a show at Tremont Music Hall and we need to get gas. I'm filling up the tank and an older man comes up to me, asks for a cigarette, and then, dropping his voice, says something to the extent of "You need to leave, don't let them know I told you." I'm stupid AF and I'm just smiling and nodding, not fully comprehending. He repeats himself, I finish up my transaction at the pump, and as soon as my bestie and I are back in the car and heading out, 10 to 20 women and children, all genders, start coming out of the bushes in front of us, and it's like they know we don't belong there, because as we drive away, they're literally yelling at us, while a kid actually taps on the car door with some sort of a stick? A bat? We don't know. We got the fuck out of there and never went back.